you doing, YouTube? This is your boy Brogi Naric, back again with another episode of Bump Psychology. And in this episode, me and my host Avery Jones will be giving our review of Dark Side of the Ring's latest episode, The Last Ride of the Road Warriors. Oh, what a rush! And I got my boy Avery Jones with me. Avery, let the people know who you are, man.
My name is Avery Jones, and for the sake of all intended purposes, you will call me, refer to me as Lightning Jones because it's wrestling related.
All right.
I am the host of the Avery Jones podcast, talking about everything life lesson related, sex, money, drugs, relationships, the whole 9 times out of 10. I talk about it here with my boy BrogiNaric for the Dark Side of the Ring. Ooh, spooky.
Oh yeah, Dark Side of the Ring. Great show on Vice Land. You can sign up for their subscriptions to watch it. And before we get into this video, don't forget to give this a like, share it, and subscribe to the channel. Really, please do that. We're trying to, channel's growing, we're both growing, and we're just putting out some good content. So, show us your appreciation. But anyway, we're going to give our non-spoiler reviews of this episode 9, the last episode before the finale. And it focuses on the Road Warriors, arguably the greatest tag team in all of professional wrestling. Dope guys back. It started in the 80s. For like 2 decades, from the 80s to the 90s. Iconic. If you don't know who they are, you would immediately recognize them. They got the face paint, the crazy hairdos, the shoulder pads with the spikes, and the awesome, just strong guys beating the hell out of everybody. And this episode focuses on their creation, their rise, and their fall, which had had a tragic ending between when one of the members, that being Road Warrior Hawk, passed away, and it was a sad moment. And this is a great series, like as we've said, as I stated in previous reviews when we did, I think it was either the Dino Bravo one or the David Schultz one, where I was like, I was not really looking forward to this episode because Dark Side of the Ring usually focuses on some sort of a scandal, some murder mystery, some controversial thing that happened in the world of wrestling. And this was an episode that really just showcased the story of a tag team. Great tag team, great story, but it just didn't seem quite as on the level as some of the other stuff. And it was an okay episode, but not bad. How did you feel about it, Jones?
Honestly, I felt the exact same way, to be completely honest with you. Like you said, it's usually surrounded some type of scandal, but for whatever reason, I feel like it was kind of like, we were here, we started a tag team. One of the two of the members decided that, like, to go off the handle, do his own thing. It ended up, tragically ending, and there you go. Like,
yeah,
it wasn't that, like, I feel like everyone in the wrestling world knew that this man passed away from his own devices. So no pun intended.
The actions of his life,
right?
His own devices. So, I got that.
Right. Yeah. There you go.
I got that.
But I just don't feel like this was really. It was my least favorite episode. It wasn't bad, but it was definitely my least favorite because it wasn't really that, like, there's nothing in there I did not know.
Right, there wasn't much of a learning. Yeah, there wasn't much that I learned that was revealed from this, and I'm not even the biggest, like, Road Warriors fan, but they are so popular that you know the story for the most part. You might not know all the details, but you know the general story. And so you have the Road Warriors, who are Hawk and Animal. Hawk is Michael Hegstrand, and Animal is Joe Laurinaitis, who is the brother of John Laurinaitis. People Power, that guy.
That's something I learned. Never knew that.
Yeah, that's his brother. They're brothers. They look nothing alike, but they're brothers.
At all.
Yeah. So one of the things that stood out in this episode was we meet Rich and Dan Hegstrand, who are Hawk's brothers. Rich being the older brother, Dan being his younger brother, and they give us a better perspective of who Mike was as a person. And surprisingly, he seems even more than what I thought Mike was like. He seems like even more of what I thought he was like, because Hawk was this raging like madman who likes to beat people up, and apparently as a kid he just liked to beat people up. That was his thing.
Beat people up. Exactly.
Yeah, that was his thing. That was his jam. He liked to fight. He liked to get into scraps, because they talk about how in the Minnesota area it was a tough area back in the day, and he was one of the toughest guys in his area, and he just liked to scrap. It's just what it was.
Right, exactly. I think that was pretty cool to like know like he was kind of like just built for it anyway.
Yeah.
Because of where like how his childhood was and stuff like that. And getting that account from his brothers, I really appreciated that part of anything.
Yeah, and the episode really hits home on the area, the Minnesota area that they grew up in. There was a lot of people, like that's a strong area for wrestling. Like a lot of great wrestlers came out of that area, especially in that time, in that that late 70s, early 80s area. We got we got the Road Warriors, Hawk and Animal. We got we got Mr. Perfect, Kurt Hennig, Minnesota area.
Yeah, Minnesota. Yeah, Ric
Flair.
Yeah,
Rick Rude.
I thought Ric Flair was there.
No.
I remember them doing like a picture of Ric Flair.
He wrestled there, but I'm talking about they from the Minnesota area. They grew up in that area. Rick Rude was from there. Barry Darsow, who we see in the episode, Repo Man and Demolition Smash. Rick Rude, Jim Nord, who was the Berserker, who was the big guy who came out as a Viking. I didn't know he was from Minnesota. Nikita Koloff, who pops up in the episode, who is not Russian, but he is a guy from Minnesota. And of course, a little bit earlier, ahead of them, Jesse Ventura, who became the governor of Minnesota. So it's a good crop of guys that were from that area. Tough guys too, all tough guys. You hear stories; they were all tough guys. A lot of them bouncers, and that's what we get with Scott. And Scott Norton. Sorry, I forgot. Scott Norton was the other one. Who I'm not too familiar with him. He was a guy that popped up in the episode. Are you too familiar with Scott Norton? Yeah,
not really. That's something I didn't know is that Repo Man was Smash.
You didn't know that?
Nope.
Yeah. But see, one of the reasons you might not realize it because when he was Smash, he was like jacked, and then he was huge. But then he lost a lot of weight, and he lost a lot of weight where he looked different, and also he lost his hair too. So he cut his hair a little bit different too. So it was enough where you wouldn't have realized it because he lost some weight, so he looked a little bit leaner when he was Repo Man. But yeah, that was him. And but yeah, Scott Norton from WCW. He worked in New Japan as well. He was another guy that's interviewed, and he knew Hawk growing up, and he talks about they were both tough guys. He tells the story of how Hawk, in order to toughen himself up, he would punch himself in the face as hard as he could to toughen up his face and fractured his teeth.
Right, and he was like, he broke his jaw.
Yeah, it's like, this kid's insane. Like, if this was like modern day, Mike he would have had a different upbringing than he grew up today. Like, they would have, hopefully someone would have put him on some medication to calm his ass down. But like, he was on one basically.
Oh, most definitely.
Yeah, so we get to the story where they're older and I mean Hawk and Animal, and they start working at a bar called Grandma B's, which is like a tough bar, bikerish bar in Minnesota, and they are bouncers, and it was a good outlet for them because they get to show how tough they are by beating the shit out of people who get out of hand,
Yep, they enjoyed it.
Yeah, they enjoyed it. They didn't mention it in the show, but Barry Darsow also worked with them at the bar, and and they also talk about how the owner of the bar was a coke dealer, and sometimes he would use Hawk and Animal to be enforcers to get, beat guys up to get the money from them. So they was about that life for a little bit,
Right, exactly.
Yep. And then, that's right. So there's one of the new bartenders there is a guy named Eddie Sharkey, who is an old school wrestler who worked in the AWA, and he sees the two guys and he's like, hey, I want to start training you big guys, you want to join in? And at first they're kind of like iffy about it, but they ultimately decide to go for it. And we get and we get another story of old school guy training guys how to wrestle by being kind of shitty,
right?
Because it was Barry and Joe who were very much like, yeah, we trained at a church. It was in a wrestling ring or a boxing ring, and at the basement of the church that he owned or preached at or something. And he would just mostly sit there and just let us watch us beat each other in the ring.
Oh, right. He's just like, I tell him, you're doing this right, or if I leave, don't do slams. And I'm like,
yeah, don't do slams.
Oh man,
not
to do these things.
Right. So he's like, look, I'm gonna leave real quick, but don't slam nobody. And then he
Don't
said
claim
he'd
that
come
you
back,
got
and they'd be in the middle of a slam. He's like, "Hey, don't do all that." So yeah, so they were like, and of course, like with David Schultz, they were taught that it was real, so they were, real aggressive. But then eventually he taught them of like, "Hey, you gotta, pull your punches a little bit, and this is how you work," type of deal. So that old school mentality of teaching you the old school tough way in order to protect yourself in the business. And
I never understood. Well, I kind of get it, but it's just like
it's
you let
different.
people hit each other for real that long.
Well,
Never
they were
told me
getting
this is how you
paid.
do it.
Right, yeah, they were getting paid. I think it was just a way to run people off, like let them beat the weak ones out, and whoever is still there, they're like, okay, I guess you're, more suited for the business. I'm assuming that's that mentality, weed out the weak type of vibe. Let's see, what was after that? Okay, yeah, so they're working at the bar, and then Olli Anderson, who's also from the Minnesota area, great wrestling promoter, worked with Jim Crockett Promotions. He was part of the Minnesota Wrecking Crew of Arn Anderson, his brother. And Olli is a promoter, and I believe he sees Joe. We find out he was actually looking for Mike, but he sees Joe. He thinks Mike is Joe, and he hires him to go to Georgia to wrestle for him, and he becomes the Road Warrior. Because at that point, Mike had already gone up to Canada, and he was wrestling. So they're both doing their thing, and we see Joe. As he says, the original Road Warrior look. He looked like the Village People, but like really tough. He looked like basically you took a He-Man character and gave him like a Village People's costume. That's exactly what he looked like. He was just like jacked up, and he had the handlebar and all that shit. Right. It's kind of funny. So some time goes on. Well, a couple months or whatever goes on. He's just gotten married. He has a family, Joe, and he's like, hey, this wrestling shit's not cutting it. I'm probably just gonna go back to bouncing. I could make more money that way. Olli comes back looking for him. Sharky realizes, hey, that picture is not Joe, it's Mike. And then Olli's like, well, there's two of these guys. So then he gets them both to become a tag team. And that's when we become the Road Warriors. Both still look like Gimp.
Two village people.
Yeah, now we got two Village People. And then I believe, they meet Paul Ellering, who I would say Paul Ellering is the MVP of this episode. He's just awesome. Not too familiar with the guy. Tell the people who...
So basically, I feel like he's very instrumental in creating the Road Warriors. So even with the training from the other guy, I feel like Paul Ellering, once he stepped in, he knew the business, and he's been there for years. So he was able to kind of like get them together, and then kind of, I think he was very instrumental in the psychology of it all and how to implement tag team wrestling, because it's a whole different dynamic when it's four guys in the ring opposed to just two.
Yeah, that's true. And Paul becomes the Road Warriors manager, but he's like their real manager. He's one of those rare, I would say, rare wrestling managers where they're actual man. They're not just some guy who's hired to stand next to the wrestler and talk for him. Like, he's actually like helping them with contracts and travel and the real business side of working as a wrestler. He's legitimately doing that for them. And they talk about how the Mad Max 2, the Road Warrior, was out, and Olli was like, hey, we could kind of take some of that vibe and give it to them. And we get into how Joe, with a friend of his who worked in the steel and welding, they come up with the spikes look, and then they start working with the face paint, and they come up with this great look. It's a very unique design. Just look up the Road Warriors. It stands out, as they said at the beginning. Is imitated but never duplicated, And they
try to do it in every single generation, and they never do it.
Yeah, they never quite get it right,
The Road Warriors were way before their time. I
think
that's what made the character work so well.
Hell yeah.
Because they were doing things that people wouldn't even have thought of back then.
Mm-hmm. And they were big guys who would work more, like usually the big guys would be real slow and methodical, but like they would do that, but they could also do the high flying for like a big guy. Like they show Hawk doing the big drop kicks and jumping off the top rope like that. A lot of big guys didn't do shit like that for the most part, so it really was striking when you would see those guys in the ring. And one of the other unique things about them, which I didn't quite hit on me, but it's like they were like a traveling rock show. Like they were never really always tied down to one specific promotion. They would go travel from place to place around the world, and
Right.
really build up a lot of hype because they were, you know, a big deal. And that really helped with the myth and the whole thing of the Road Warrior pop, as they talk about. Explain the Road Warrior pop to the people.
So the Road Warrior pop is, well, a pop in general is when the audience just kind of goes ballistic for a particular character.
Stone Cold's glass breaks, and then everybody's like, that's the pop.
Like screams and stuff like that. So I feel like with the Road Warriors, it's like that times 1,000. So it's like there's only one specific pop that you can get for the Road Warriors. If Hawk was living today, God rest his soul, I feel like even if today they came out and the Road Warriors music hit, you hear What a Rush or what have you, then they run to the ring, everybody's gonna go ballistic. Everybody's gonna So that's just that particular reaction they get, only they got. Simple.
Yeah, there you go. And then we start to get into how you know, they're doing great, but Mike Headstring Hawk, he has a little darker side. He's really getting into the alcohol and the drugs, really living up the party life, which I think Hawk partaked a little bit. I mean, Animal, but not to the degree of Hawk. Hawk was very notorious on his drinking and partying.
He didn't make it seem like he partaked in anything. He was just like, man, Hawk was. He was a
little like, yeah, you know, Hawk, man, he'd be out there them drinking, them drugs. I'm like,
you know, drinking, you know, you got to do the drinking, but
right.
You know, he started doing drugs, and you know,
Coke,
I wasn't like me. I don't do that.
Right, I didn't do that person. Like he was like, we know, we seen the promos, we knew you was high too, but like not to the level of Hawk, because Hawk was notorious. And of course, they talk about how, you know, you do the self-medication, you get the pain, so you take the pain pills, and then that leads to other things, you know, the uppers and your downers, the grueling travel schedule. But they also say, like, once they got to the big leagues, the WWF at that time, that's when things got a little bit worse because their schedule is way more upbeat and way more brutal. And that's where the things really started to turn. And we get into, you know, they have to change their name because they had the Ultimate Warrior, they had the Modern Day Warrior with Kerry Von Erich. So Vince was like, hey, I need a new name for you guys. And they say that it was Hawk who came up with the whole Legion of Doom idea, which is a cool...
So because they were saying that Paul Ellering used to travel around in that van, and then Animal used to tell the stories about...
it was Hawk. It was Hawk. I thought
Animal was doing it.
No, it was Hawk because I remember they were saying Hawk would watch
the episode.
I watched it before. Anyway, it was Hawk who said it because he was saying that he would be rambling on in the car. I'm like, yeah, that's more of a Hawk thing, but he's just talking out of his mind. But they said it was, you know, Hawk was big into He-Man, which is kind of funny because they do have He-Man-ish vibes about them. But the whole Legion of Doom thing comes from Super Friends, but whatever. That's so you know. Anyway, they become the Legion of Doom. It's from Super Friends. It's not He-Man. It's Super Friends. But anyway, they're old. They don't know. Anyway, so they get into the WWF, and it's kind of weird because, well, not weird because it's a big deal. It's one of those things where Vince has a history of doing this, where it's like, oh, something I didn't create is hot. I want it, and then when he puts his hands on it, he kind of tarnishes it, you know. And that kind of is what happens with the Road Warriors, where because there's the other team known as Demolition, Axe and Smash, which Barry Darso, their friend, is a part of, and they have that reputation of being Vince's attempt to try to recreate the Road Warriors. And and Demolition was a dope team on its own, but you know, sometimes a lot of people view them as a ripoff of the Road Warriors. So when they immediately get into the company, they try to have a storyline with, you know, Vince's guys versus the outsiders. They rush it. It doesn't really work that well, and it's kind of it doesn't really work out. But they're still trying to work with them, and we focus on their match at SummerSlam at Wembley Stadium. And I think it was like Hawk's drug problem was causing things to kind of like Vince and them could see like he's not the most trustworthy. So they Animal explains how they knocked down, changed the match. Like it was supposed to be a bigger match. It was supposed to be the Road Warriors versus the Natural Disasters, Earthquake and Earthquake and Typhoon. But then it got
Hawk actually did that because there was a backstage segment where Vince McMahon was trying to tell him, like, hey, this is what I want you guys to do in the second to last match in WrestleMania, and then Hawk was, high on
I think it was muscle relaxers. Yeah.
9 times out of 10. And he's just like, hey, Vince, you know what would be really cool? And he kept doing that to the point where Vince got upset and was just like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to put you against these two. I'm going to put you against the Perfect Alliance.
No, it wasn't Perfect Alliance. It was Money Incorporated. It was
Money Incorporated. Yeah,
Ted DiBiase and IRS.
IRS, exactly. Yeah. So it was like, I'm going to put you against them in the second match or what have you. And he's like, obviously Hawk is high, so like, we have to ride motorcycles down to the ring.
Yeah, so, he cannot control himself. Yeah.
Right, and he's like, we can't do their infamous move, the Doomsday Device. You can't do that because he's gonna fall off the top rope.
Yeah.
So they had to finish, and that was weird. You could see in the episode as he's just kind of like stampering around,
stumbling, and he's like missing spots and shit. Yeah, it didn't look good. Like it probably didn't look that bad when you saw it at first, but now with that context, you really see it.
Right. I wanted to know how, like, because I read somewhere that like the doll that Paul Ellering carried
I was about to bring that up. I was going to bring that up.
Right. And I wanted to, I was curious behind like what.
So, like I was saying, Vince has, when something is outside and it's big, Vince wants to get it and then he tarnishes it. And for some reason, he had his guys come up, because I believe that was the first time Paul Ellering appeared with them in WWF. Because when they first got there, he wasn't there. But when they did this storyline that was building up to SummerSlam, where it was like their old manager comes in and he brings some weird dummy, I guess because Chucky was popular at the time, Child's Play had came out, maybe that might have been the genesis of it, but for some reason they have this stupid ass like Chucky doll thing with them that's supposed to be, I don't know, evil or powerful or some shit, but it's like leading them or helping them out. It made no sense, but they got the doll and they're on the motorcycle. It was dumb, and that dumb creative, and then Hulk with his problems and kind of botching the match a little bit made tensions bad, and I believe Hulk just was like, screw this, and he quits on Animal, and Animal's like, what the hell, we still got a couple dates, and Hulk leaves Animal dry, and Animal's like, well, I'm gonna be honorable, try to finish this out, but they have their first major sort of riff, and they both end up leaving WWF, and in that time Hulk just goes to Japan and gets a new tag team partner in Japan, a guy named Kensuke Sasaki, and just calls him the Power Warrior and just dresses him up like another Road Warrior. They just start kicking ass in Japan. And then
call themselves the Road Warriors.
Yeah, they're still the Road Warriors, yeah, because I guess they both have claim over the tag team, but it's like it's Hulk and Power Warrior. And Animal, I think Animal, they said sometime after that, he had a back injury, so he was out for a couple of years. And he's just like, what the fuck? Like, I thought we were a team, and then you're, another country, you got another guy, like, you just replaced me like I'm nothing. But, Hawk was doing his thing in Japan, and I heard he has a pretty solid career in Japan. The Road Warriors do have the stigma of being very rough and being very stiff, which they were, but they couldn't wrestle when they really wanted to, especially Hawk. Like, when he was on his own in Japan, he upped his game to another level. It's different in Japan than it is in America,
Oh, much different. They were always over in Japan only because they look different. You know what I'm saying? They fit in that atmosphere of Japan. Japan was doing that stuff way beforehand anyway.
True.
So when you put somebody in the fold that's like one step even above the stuff that Japan was doing at the time, of course they're going to be big.
Yeah. So they do things. They work at WCW. They don't really talk about that, but they do go back to WCW for a while. But then in 1997, they go back to the WWF, WWE, but they got to change it up a little bit, and they become, instead of the Legion of Doom, they're LOD 3000, and there's a new member added to the team, that of Darren Drozdov, who, if you saw the Brawl Fall episode, you have an idea of who he is, but he was a former, I think, NFL Broncos player who becomes a wrestler, and he has this gimmick where he can throw up on command, some weird shit. Anyway, they throw him in with the Road Warriors because he's a big guy, and I think there was a chick with them too, wasn't it, at some point? Or if I'm getting that confused with someone else?
Yeah, there was never a chick there. Draw does not have the best of luck, mind you.
No, he doesn't. Yeah, and he gets injured later on in his career. I could have sworn there was a chick with them at some point. Like, it was like Draws was there, and then they threw in the chick for a little bit, and then they took her away.
I don't think they put that in the document. If it was,
yeah.
I can't call it, but
I think it was. But anyway, so yeah, and then once again we do another thing about Vince, where if he knows someone has a problem, and if he feels like he can exploit it, he will. So they come up with this weird storyline where Hawk is now drunk. Like, his drug problems are like, in kayfabe are causing rifts with the team. And Draws' character, I don't even know what his Road Warrior name was. Was it this Road Warrior Draws? I don't know. Anyway, he's like conspiring to push Animal out of the team, and then it would be Hawk out of the team, and it would be Animal and Draws. And it's a terrible storyline that doesn't really work, and it brings up the dark demons of Mike Haig's
basically.
Yeah, and then there's a whole moment where there's an attempted, or like they think like Hawk's on the Titantron, and they're like, "Oh, Hawk don't jump. It's not that serious." And then they make it like Draws is gonna try to push him. It's bad. It was not a great storyline.
And he was like, Draws is like gonna climb up to like save Hawk or whatever, and he's like pushing him over.
It's bad.
Dark, and I was like, this is not cool.
Yeah, and once again, wrestling, especially Vince, does that a lot. He did the same thing with Jake Roberts, where he was supposed to be a born-again Christian, but he was still, drinking the drug substance. Eddie Guerrero, when he died, the infamous, promo from Randy Orton to Rey Mysterio, like, Eddie's not up there, he's down there, stuff like that. Or Roman Reigns, even when Roman Reigns, had the leukemia, and, he had that thing where he had Dean Ambrose say the line to Seth Rollins about Roman's gonna die or some shit like that. Shit like that. Like, Vince loves doing.
He loves exploiting real life stuff to blur the lines.
Yeah, Vince loves shit like that. It's not good. I know, but as Paul Ellering eloquently says, he's like, that's wrestling. Like, if they can take something real, they will take it and twist it a little bit. And it's like, it is what it is. But yeah, so. Some time goes on, and eventually Hawk seeks help, and he seeks redemption through the power of Christ. He meets up with a friend of his, Nikita Koloff, who is a wrestler who is also himself a born again Christian, and he brings him into his church or whatever group they were a part of, and he starts to change his life, cleans himself up. Yeah.
So basically what happens is, I think somebody invited Animal to a Christian powerlifting competition.
Right.
And he was like, oh yeah, cool. Can I bring Hawk? And he was like, yeah, sure.
That's
why not?
what it was.
So what it was. And he was just like, oh wow, these powerlifters and they're Christians. I want to be a born again Christian.
Yeah, I want to get I want to get cool with God. So and Nikita Koloff himself he's a preacher now. And his name is legally Nikita Koloff. It's not that, but he's kind of like Ultimate Warrior when he was trying to legally get his name to be. I think he actually did change it to Warrior, but Nikita Koloff is legally Nikita Koloff. Bit extreme, but I get why he did it. So he can have the rights basically. But so he gets remarried to a woman named Dale, and some time after that, one day they're moving out of the house. And he feels tired, so he tells his wife, "I'm gonna go upstairs to take a nap." He does, and he doesn't wake up. His heart fails him because his heart is powerful, but it's gone through so much trauma. It just, he just died. Sometimes certain
large heart. Basically.
Yeah, he had a enlarged heart. Yeah, so his time of all the drug use, and he passes on. And we get the beautiful story of Paul Ellering when he found out, and him and his wife, he tells the wife to get the old van, because it was their old Road Warrior van that they would ride in. He takes it out of the garage and gets some spray paint to touch it up, and him and his wife drive down to Florida for the funeral. And they talk something about, I think it was either he said it, or I think it was something he said at the funeral that was very eloquent. I can't remember it. Watch the episode if you want to know what he said. Beautiful stuff.
It was the eulogy he gave. Paul Ellering gave eulogy.
Yeah. And he does a beautiful thing about it. And then, they're like, yeah, we were a great team. Partner died. And, we had our ups and downs, but, we're great. And we were legends, will be remembered, and that's the end of the episode, you know. And yeah, it was very, you know, not a lot of stuff really was revealed, at least for me, you know what I'm saying, like being a WWE fan.
They're in the Hall of Fame, aren't they?
Oh hell yes, yeah, they're in the Hall of
No.
Fame. Yeah, I think
But-
I don't know what year, but yeah, they're in the Hall of Fame.
I figured, but this episode didn't really do it for me. Only because, like I said, there was no like twists and turns. There was no like, oh, wow, I didn't know that, or okay, that was a plot twist. It was just kind of like, you know, very straightforward, which is cool, but it was like, okay,
Yeah,
this episode is exactly what we thought it was going to be. It's just like
it's kind of a
Hawk
random
had-
one. Yeah,
Right, Hawk had drug problems. He ends up dying from said drug problems, and
yeah.
Animal is left doing his own thing.
Yeah, and that's the other thing that kind of. Let's talk about some of the disappointments in this episode. I was annoyed. I was really disappointed. I knew they weren't going to do it, but I was very disappointed. They didn't talk about my boy Heidenreich. What the fuck? Like, so Hawk dies, and then like Animal comes, I guess through sympathy or whatever. They're like, and I guess because John Laurinaitis is working with the company, they bring Hawk back in, and not Hawk, they bring Animal back in. And then they do this whole thing where he starts teaming up with this wrestler named Heidenreich, who's going to be his new Hawk. And sadly, which I've seen shoot interviews, he basically really was a new Hawk, because Animal's whole career was like him and his partner, but he had to be like the babysitter for this big, you know, tough guy who has a drug problem. And then he comes back, he's older now, and he's settled up with this big tough guy who has a drug problem named Heidenreich. So he's kind of reliving his early career.
Had a drug problem.
Yeah, apparently he did. I've seen some interviews, and he was like, no, Heidenreich there was a reason why he looked so fucking crazy, because he was on drugs his damn self. So sadly, they didn't get into that. I loved Heidenreich. He was terrible, but he was awesome at the same time.
I don't know why this guy is so obsessed with Heidenreich.
Heidenreich he's good.
I don't know why.
He's good bad. He's good awful. He's good awful. Heidenreich was dope, but he was in the intro and he do the come on, that was great on SmackDown. That shit was lit. All right, anyway, so
I don't think it was needed in the episode.
it was needed because you needed to realize
The
how
last ride of the Road Warriors.
that's the Road Warriors. They were still Road Warriors.
No, ended there.
He had green in his
Road
makeup.
Warrior. You said what?
He had green in his makeup. He was a Road Warrior. He had makeup. He counts. If we're gonna talk about draws, we need to talk about Heidenreich. If we're gonna talk about,
because draws came in the mist before Hawk even passed away.
but you got to talk about the after effect. The after effect, like when you try to recreate what was done, you get Heidenreich. It's like this shit don't
We
work.
talked about like because it was the last ride of the Road Warriors. Now, if they did an episode of now Animal without Hawk, then throw Heidenreich in there. But
yeah, they had tag titles. They were tag champions.
and
That's
it's
what
only
on.
like 45 minutes long.
I'm just saying, you could have said he continued and it didn't work out. Like, you know, they tried and it didn't work out. You could have, but no, they didn't.
They would have took 2 minutes or maybe a minute to say that.
It was just
He tried with other partners, it didn't work out,
That's
including one of them was Heidenreich.
Exactly. That's all I wanted. Just give the nigga some shine. Like, goddamn. I don't know what he's doing right now. I want to see what he was living his life like. Anyway, so
You just curious. I think that's what it is.
I'm curious. So there was one great moment we didn't talk about where we get a random cut to we talk about the Road Warriors, and then randomly Godfather shows up, and and this was something they filmed earlier when they did the Brawl Fall episode. But he tells the story of one night the wrestlers were at this strip club and it was starting to close down. Vince McMahon is there, he's drunk, and he's just like, hey, I want to take everybody's finisher. Because he's drunk and insane. And he's Vince fucking McMahon. And I don't remember everyone that's there, but I know the Road Warrior's there, Godfather's there, Undertaker's there, because I've heard this story before, and he took the tombstone. I can't remember what other wrestlers are there. I'm trying to think. It's early 90s, so I'm guessing Kurt Hennig might have been there. Mr. Perfect. I doubt if say what that Hulk Hogan. Yeah, it was early 90s, so Hulk either was there or he was probably busy filming something at the time. I doubt if Jake was there. Brett might have been there. Shawn probably was there. If I had to guess, Shawn Michaels was probably there. But yeah, it's an infamous story, and that's another person who's confirming that it happened in that big Godfather. Other things I want to talk about. Okay, so there's a thing where you need to let the past go, and I don't know why, but Joe Laurinaitis, aka Animal, this man has 12 hairs on his head, and he still have them in the shape of the mohawk. Like, why is he doing this to himself? Why?
Like, I'm like, I don't know why he doesn't just go bald. I don't think he'd be a bad looking dude with a bald head.
He's already bald. He's got 6 hairs on his head, and he's just they're still in the pattern of his mohawk. I'm like,
we're gonna go through where it's like actually serious with this. I was just like, oh, what is he about to say? Like, he has 12 hairs on his head. You're right though. Just,
as soon as he popped up on the screen, I'm like,
if you watch this video, like, does he have an Instagram? You need to send this to me.
I'm like, nigga, what are you doing? You's a grown man. You ain't got to be out here. Like, we know who you are, bro. You don't have to, like, your hair's gone. Like, let it go, man. Like, move.
I don't want to let go of the past, man. He wants to always be like a road warrior.
He still has the mustache. Like, I recognize you. It's just, you're bald now. Like, just let it go. Taker cut his hair. Like, nigga, Corbin cut his hair. You got to let the shit go at some point, man. Shawn Michaels cut his hair. Like, I ain't got it. Like, you got to let shit go sometimes.
Terrible. That's why he's always wearing a hat.
I mean, he looks terrible, but he at least faces reality. That's all I'm saying. Like, goddamn.
He didn't have to cut his hair. He could have like did the short haircut with like what Triple H did. You know what I'm saying? He could have kept
Triple
the
H.
hair.
That's another one. He cut his hair. He knew what time it is. He bald now. He know what time it is.
He looks okay with like the short haircut and baldness, but Shawn Michaels, he should have kept that, man. Baron Corbin looks better with bald. Not Shawn Michaels. Shawn Michaels without hair is just like.
That's why he wears hats. That's why he wears hats. But
You know,
anyway,
it's like Rick James without a jerry curl. Like it's like Stevie Wonder without dreads.
yeah. Or like Coolio, he still had like 6 plaits in his head, and it's just no point.
It's just not the same. Shawn Michaels is not.
Let the shit go.
He knows it.
Another thing I want to talk about. Paul Ellering, dope. He's dope. I don't know why. Vince apparently hates old people because, you know, Paul Ellering came back into the wrestling world. We were talking about this. Tell the story about Paul Ellering back in the wrestling world.
Oh, so Paul Ellering actually comes back, and I don't even think it was Vince's idea. It was Triple H's to put him with a big tag team, AOP, Authors of Pain.
Up and coming tag team, not big tag. Up and coming.
They were a big tag team in NXT.
Up and coming, once again, up and coming.
They were a very integral part in making Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa the tag team that they are, or
True.
were, or whatever.
True.
They wouldn't have been that big if it was not for AOP. Having these small guys going against these giants. But I digress. So AOP brings in, to get them a little bit more over, brings in Paul Ellering. A lot of people didn't even know who Paul Ellering was.
I didn't know who the hell he was. Like, some people in the audience recognized him, but I didn't know who he was. And then
Right, people like in NXT were like, oh, Paul Ellering. So I did some research, and I was just like, oh, that makes sense, because he was the Road Warriors manager, and because he was such a good manager, meaning like he handled the booking and stuff. Like, he made sure that like they knew the psychology behind wrestling, what it was, what it wasn't, and he was gonna be integral part in building AOP into whomever they were as a tag team. So I think bringing him back into the fold of things with AOP was a good idea, but once they moved to the main roster, that was it.
Done.
Never seen Paul Ellering again.
I think he was there for like one match, and then like the second time they appeared, they did the whole storyline where they let him back. And it was interesting when that happened, because it was like, man, Paul Ellering is really good with these guys. But then it's like, well, he's old. Maybe he didn't want to travel. So that was like kind of the thought process. Well, maybe he was, you know, the WWE schedule is much different than the NXT schedule. But then it was like, no, Paul Ellering was like, no, I was willing to travel. They just didn't want me. And it's like, oh, bad idea. Because as soon as he left, that team went straight to shit after that.
I don't think it was a combination of him leaving, also the fact that these dudes are huge, but they're so injury prone. If one's not injured, the other one's injured.
That's true.
You can't work as a tag team separately. So, and I don't think they could be singles competitors. They just couldn't. I think they put them in that box to always be a tag team if they were.
But Paul Ellering, he's one of those like when you hear wrestling managers, you hear, you know, you get your Jim Cornettes, your Brian your Bobby Heenans, your J.J. Dillons, even your Gary Harts or your Jimmy Harts. And sometimes you forget about Paul Ellering. Like I said, I was not familiar with this guy, but looking back at his work, he was cool. He was a dope manager. He could talk. He had a great look. He was probably one of the best looking managers. Like when you look at managers, they're usually, heavy guys. They might have used to wrestle, but they're like old and fat. Paul Ellering, he was the manager of the Road Warriors, and he was jacked. He was like the Road Warriors is jacked, and he was jacked, but he's like wearing a suit or whatever. But when you see him in a shirt, he is cut. Like imagine Seth Rollins if he was a manager. That's exactly what Paul Ellering looks like. He looks like Seth Rollins as a manager. Like look how how like cut Seth Rollins is.
Right, I didn't even know. I didn't pay that much attention to it. I thought he was just like what he looks like now.
No, look at him back in the '80s. He looks like a wrestler. Like, but he's not. It was kind of interesting. Like, why are you not? Because I would see him. Because I used to, on the network, I would watch old Jim Crockett promotion episodes, and they would pop up, and he would be doing the promo, and I'm like, this guy is like in better shape than like some of the wrestlers. Like, what is? Wow. That's kind of interesting. Yeah, like no, he looks like I said, he looks like Seth Rollins. Look at Paul Ellering in the back of the '80s. He looks like Seth Rollins, but he's not wrestling for some reason. I don't know if he used to wrestle. I don't know, but it's interesting.
For him to be able to give that much psychology for a match and how it works, I think that's possible. What I'm saying. Yeah. I don't think even I don't know, but I don't even think that like Jim Cornette can look at a match and be like, okay, this is what I think you should do, but like I think Paul Ellering actually wrestled to be like, this is what needs to happen.
Yeah, it's possible, but so those are our thoughts on this episode, and next week is the season 2 finale of Dark Side of the Ring, and we're going to talk about Owen Hart, the career and tragic death of Owen Hart, which I was a kid. We were both kids when it happened, but I don't think I was that big into wrestling for the Owen Hart death to, like, it was like either to know about it or for really to register, because I didn't really know much about Owen Hart, you know what I'm saying?
It happened in what, 19? It's like we weren't that old.
Yeah, we weren't that old. We were kids. So it was like what, 98, 97 when he died?
97, 98.
Yeah.
I was 5.
Yeah, we were like 5. So yeah, but it's a tragic story. It's one of those big, infamous. It's one of those things that doesn't like. It's like we don't talk about Benoit, and we really don't even talk about Owen, but for different reasons. It's like we don't talk about Benoit because murder, death, kill. We don't talk about Owen because, oh God, we might have accidentally killed that guy, so we don't talk about that. So it's taboo. So that's gonna be a tough, interesting episode.
Because they also don't talk about it because they know his wife will be on that ass.
That too.
Heartbeat.
That too.
In a heartbeat.
Yeah, that's some wrongful death suits on that one. But yeah, so we're gonna close this episode out. Avery, let the people know where they can find you.
As always, you guys, you can find me on. Actually, I switched my Instagram name. So
God damn it.
Yeah. Did you haven't edited? You made the overlay already?
Well, I got the tag with your shit on it. Okay, whatever. Just tell the niggas. Yeah. God damn.
Anywho, it's Avery Jones Pod on Instagram. Of course, you can search the Avery Jones Podcast on the YouTubes, and you can find all of my recent episodes there. Uploads every Monday. Hopefully, maybe, most likely.
Most likely, right?
Yeah, most likely. But uploads a new episode every Monday.
Right, and so yeah, thanks for watching this video. Once again, don't forget to give this a like, share it, and subscribe to the. Yeah. Oh, sorry, you threw me off. Sorry. Give this video a like, share it, and subscribe to the channel. I was like, what the fuck? Like, what are you doing? Okay, anyway. Anyway, like, you about to flip me off? Nigga, what's going on? Anyway, but yeah, thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more videos. Peace.